In this video, I'll show you how I learned the handstand and the system I created so that you effectively can do the same. It consists of 6 different steps. Once you complete the first, you move on to the second and so on. And since the handstand is a balance dominant skill rather than strength dominant, you can grease the groove and practice frequently to speed up the process. Mastering the handstand is such a fundamental and fun process in calisthenics, and it's a gateway for many more advanced movements. So let's get into it. The frog stand is the first step because it's the easiest way to begin balancing on your hands. For the setup, place your hands at about shoulder width apart. Some people prefer to go a little narrower or wider, but shoulder width is a good baseline, and you'll learn what feels natural to you as you go. Next, you want to spread out your fingers, which will improve stability by increasing the surface area. Then slightly pull the fingers back and bend them, creating a small pocket of air underneath. This increases force generation from the fingertips, which will make adjustments easier. If you have poor wrist mobility and feel discomfort when applying pressure, you can rotate the hands slightly outwards. This shifts some of the load away from the wrists and onto the biceps. Of course, you can also get some wrist wraps for extra protection. These principles for width and hand placement apply to every progression, including the freestanding handstand, so might as well practice it from the beginning. Now squat down, find your hand placement, and make sure your legs are outside the arms. From this position, bend the arms slightly and place your elbows in the leg crease just below the knees. And with your elbows pressing into the legs, slowly lean forward until your feet naturally lift off the ground. The legs leaning on the arms should distribute the load, so the bones provide most of the support, allowing your muscles to work less. So if it feels too heavy, chances are your legs are not fully in position. As you start balancing, place the majority of the weight on the bottom part of the palm. If you overbalance and start leaning too far forward, press down with your fingers to counterbalance. And if you fall backward, quickly lower your head to shift the weight or even bend the arms to regain control. This learning process comes down to the muscle memory from a lot of microadjustments. And while you can break down the overall technical elements, it's faster to learn through repetition and experimentation. Go for a few seconds in the beginning and then gradually work your way up to 20 seconds. And when you can hold 20 seconds consistently, you're ready for step 2. Step 2 is still a frog stand variation, but the balance and strength requirements are increased. In the advanced frog stand, the arms are now fully straight, and instead of resting on the outside, the knees press directly into the forearms for support. So for the setup, place your knees below the elbows and apply pressure. Then slowly lean forward, and when your feet naturally lift off the floor, you hold the position for time, just like you did in the regular frog stand. And once you can hold the position for 15-20 seconds consistently, you're ready for the next step. I'm not sure you can still consider the crane pose a frog stand variation, but the principles are very similar. However, the balance and strength requirements are increased again. In this pose, you're gonna mimic the arm position of the advanced frog stand, keeping the elbows straight. But instead of pressing the knees into the forearms, you now place them higher up the arm, and specifically into the back of the triceps, just below the armpit. Again, slowly lean forward and hold for time. And since the strength requirements are now increased twice, and we mainly want to focus on the balance aspect, holding it for 10 to 15 seconds consistently is enough to move on to step number 4. An important part of mastering the handstand is the control to regain balance when losing it, and we practice this by intentionally putting ourselves in unstable positions. In step number 4, we do this by revisiting the original frog stand but with a twist. While holding the frog stand, which should be quite easy at this point, slowly lean forward, point the head down and aim to tap the floor with your nose. When you succeed, directly enter the starting position again. In the beginning, you can place a pillow in front of you for safety, or gradually increase the amount of lean until you develop enough control for a nose tap. Once you can perform 5 controlled nose taps consistently, you've completed what I call the frog stand ladder, and you're ready for step number 5. At this point, it's time to take the next step and start balancing freestanding. We're not doing wall-assisted training because, in my experience, it's a way to learn bad habits and they can be difficult to unlearn. Instead, the next focus is learning how to exit the handstand safely to avoid falling onto your back. We do this by kicking into the handstand and immediately exiting again. For the setup, start with the hands planted into the floor, just like in the frog stand progressions. If you start the kick-up motion while standing, there'll be too much variation each time you try. With the proper hand placement, bend your lead leg and fully extend your back leg. Then quickly lift the extended leg and use the momentum to bring your body into a straight line. As soon as you reach vertical or near vertical, lean to the side and exit the handstand. If you overbalance, try not to save it by putting a hand forward and walking, but really focus on leaning to the side. By repeatedly practicing these kick-up exits, you'll become comfortable with failing and falling. Once you trust that you can always exit safely, even from an overpowered kick-up, you'll gain the confidence to fully commit. And with that, you're ready for the sixth and final step. In the final step, we're now doing kick-ups with the intent to hold the handstand. As the weight shifts onto your hands, depress your shoulder blades and actively tighten your core. Be sure not to flex the glutes though, as this will lead to arching of the lower back. And even though this makes it easier to balance, it doesn't have the straight line that we want, and again it's difficult to unlearn. In the perfect handstand, every joint is aligned, resulting in what we call bone stacking. When the bones are stacked, you don't need a lot of strength to hold it, but it's more difficult to balance. Luckily, you've already practiced the microadjustments in earlier steps, which will make it easier. If you have a solid strength base, I recommend combining the momentum of the kick-up with the control of a press-up. This involves starting closer to your hands, jumping into the handstand, and using momentum to reach near vertical before pressing into the final position. Since regular kick-ups result in slightly varying landing positions, this method ensures that you can enter the straight alignment in a more controlled way. However, it does require more strength, so if you're not ready for it, don't worry. You can still achieve a consistent freestanding handstand using the standard kick-up technique. If you learn the handstand through these steps, it's like learning how to ride the bike. Your body and muscles will remember it, even with periods of no training or with focusing on other skills. That was it for the video. Hopefully it was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.